The amendment bill has generated perhaps a better debate than I had anticipated at the outset, and I welcome the contributions from various members, Clayton Cosgrove, Darren Fenton, Chris Finlayson, in that respect. And actually I don't disagree too much with the framework that Clayton Cosgrove outlined in that last speech, because I too believe that immigration decisions should be based very much on the evidence at hand. But it is important to pull in all of the evidence possible and not rely on one bit of evidence. Clayton Cosgrove said that the United Nations might be the highest form of evidence. I don't think that is always necessarily the case, particularly when, as anyone who studies the United Nations knows, that it is balancing competing interests and operating in a certain geopolitical reality, and one of the key features of the Iranian situation is the tens of thousands of refugees, particularly from Afghanistan, that the UN is very grateful that the Iranian government allows to be hosted on its soil, which could colour its decisions on the danger to Christian converts of Islam. And I think the other bits of evidence that we bring into decisions like that, and we're using this as an illustration in the context of this bill, is evidence from what happens in Iran, the lower house of the Iranian parliament actually debating and passing a law saying that Christian converts from Islam can be executed, not just imprisoned but executed. Apostates is the term they use. Then we have evidence we could gather from our embassy in Tehran. Under the 1951 Refugee Convention, we are supposed to collect evidence and make our independent judgment on whether people returned to a country will actually be persecuted, and not just say, oh, this organisation will be okay, we'll just do what UN or whatever it is says. We've got to look at all the evidence. We have an embassy in Tehran to gather that evidence, and then also, it's important to look at the evidence provided by the Catholic Church, because they have people in Iran, they have a big international network to gather evidence. They've been involved in campaigning to stop people like some of the people we've been talking about tonight being returned to possible persecution in Iran. And I realised as the discussion went on that there is something of a common bond between myself and Chris Finlayson and Clayton Cosgrove when he referred to St Bede's College, because I did teach 2 terms at St Bede's College many years ago. I think it was before Clayton Cosgrove arrived, because I don't think I could have ever controlled a young 4th form Clayton Cosgrove. He's bad enough when he's this age.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Sir, I just feel it's appropriate to confirm for the House that Keith Locke never taught me at St Bede's.
Oh, that's not a point of order. Right.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Clayton Cosgrove, for that point of order. Thank God, sorry, yeah. That was my only problem at St Bede's, that I didn't have God on my side the way some of the other priests did, in disciplining rather rough 4th formers and 3rd formers, but there we are. No, I think that, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating on a lot of these refugee cases, and the people that, and I think Clayton Cosgrove and myself may ultimately agree on this, that the reason why I think these people were wrong, were right not to sign papers to be deported to Iran, and we're talking about Amir Mohbi in jail for 4 years, Ali Pana in jail for 2 years, and Thomas Yaragari in jail for 2 years, is that if they had signed that bit of paper, they might be back being persecuted in Iran today. Instead, they're sitting in New Zealand as good New Zealanders, and that is the result of a thorough, in the end, a thorough immigration process. I think the people like myself who defended those people have been proved right in all of those cases that were prominent in the media. And I think it is important for us to pay attention to immigration issues, because every MP knows that we get a lot of them, and that people get very distressed if they're not being treated fairly through the immigration system, and we are often defending them to make sure they are treated fairly. So we all have a vested interest in getting it right. Now, I think in the Attorney-General's contribution towards the end, he actually raised a point that in some ways this bill gives the Attorney-General too much power. And it might be okay at the moment when we have a very good Attorney-General, but he indicated himself that the bill makes provision for when the Immigration and Protection Tribunal is dealing with classified information, and it has to work with and get the consent of the Attorney-General. That is, the Attorney-General in effect has a veto power over the Immigration and Protection Tribunal, which isn't a very good procedure to have, because that tribunal should be truly independent and determine those matters for itself. Sure, there should be a provision for consultation, but not for the Attorney-General to actually be able to veto those decisions. And then the other thing he mentioned, I think, was in terms of processing classified information, there has to be an agreement not only between the Attorney-General and the Immigration and Protection Tribunal, but the Attorney-General and the Chief Justice. So the Attorney-General in this case can veto the Chief Justice, which isn't necessarily the best situation. Again, it could have been written as a consultation procedure, not effectively a right of veto. So there's a whole lot of things that are important to address under this bill, and I think it is good that the UN Human Rights Committee has discussed our Immigration Act and immigration procedures, come down with some criticisms and some praise, a combination of the two. And hopefully that will continue. I think the Justice Minister, Simon Power, when he went to New York to participate in that assessment of New Zealand's human rights, including immigration rights, before the UN Human Rights Commission, that he did enjoy that experience, as he enjoyed a previous experience in Geneva a couple of years ago, that it is good when we're engaging with the world community, trying to meet the standards of the world community. There's so many countries that don't. In general, we are better than other countries around the world, but that doesn't mean to say, particularly on this often fractious issue of immigration and the rights of people who are trying to come here, settle here, visit here, that we shouldn't have the fairest processes possible. And unfortunately, the Greens are going to have to continue to cast a vote against this bill because it still offends too much against our civil liberties, particularly in undermining fair, open and due process for visitors and migrants to our country. Thank you.